Hello, everyone. This is Cerulean Oak. I am providing a devlog update for Pure Rogue. It's been a while since I initially announced this project, and I really wanted to start to record more regularly what work is being done for this. I fully anticipate for this to be a released game, either free on the web at first, and then released more broadly, or simply fully released on the web for free. Not sure about that yet. Um, Early play tests and just my general impressions and my experience of games tells me that this is a fun game and it's still very much in early development, but all of the real nuts and bolts, the framework underneath is solid. It is in its current state a game that is fun to play and has a lot of content already. I'm very much in that content development state of the game. Really briefly, I'll play it so you can see without sound right now, but what the experience is like. So the game has a simple loop. You are in the rest area, and you have sort of this gathering sense of what are my capabilities? What can I do? There's a crafting area here. There's some, slots on the left and right that imply that there's things that I can do with numbers. And ultimately, that this is a game about memory rather than progress in a traditional sense. So the more that you choose to invest time playing this game, the more things that you'll discover, the more things that you may try intuitively or logically as a result of exploring the game. So the main part of the game, of course, is the explore side of the loop. You explore and you experience things in a traditional 80s uh, PC slash 80s arcade. For those of you old enough to remember what games looked like with Centipede and Space Invaders and things like that. It very much leans into this aesthetic. I'll talk a bit about the architecture of the game in a second, but just to really drive home what's going on with this game. So there are, of course, enemies that can cause me damage here, and I just picked up a weapon that I can use to fight back. So I hit this R is a rat, so he runs away in fear if I hit him. And in this case, he's just gonna run the heck out of this room and he's gone. So there's also some passive enemies here. These are meant to be crows. They'll just simply fly around and land on things, and they may or may not have some bearing on a particular run. And then over here in the corner, you can see we have a little, technically an enemy. It's meant to be a dummy that you can cause damage to, but it doesn't have any bearing on the current state of the game. You notice that the rat ran out of the room via one of these three directional exits. So these are choices that I can make in terms of exploring what the game has to offer. So if I follow the rat over here to this L, I come to a lake area and there's more enemies than before. And I could still hit them and they'll get scared off. And I hit this guy and he doesn't get scared off. He's actually really aggressive. And he's got a frog tongue attack. He hops around like a frog. So you might infer that this is meant to be a frog. Letter G instead of F for reasons that I won't go into right now. But yeah, this is the game loop in general. So if I were to finish off this enemy here, I think he's got a decent amount of HP. You'll notice as you play, you find interesting things about the weapon that I have. You can see that it can miss. It doesn't cause a lot of damage. And then, it drops things when it dies. That poor rat's just hiding in the corner because there's no exit for him to run away from. So, yeah. Oh, and a bullet just bounced off a rock and back towards this guy here. You can see that there's a reload mechanic. I can dodge roll through this enemy in the classic expectations of roguelikes these days. Roguelikes obviously did not exist in the 80s, but there was a game called Rogue, which was a movement turn based. So if you pressed any key, that was a turn. I've never played the game myself, but that's the origin of the term roguelike. Anyways, here we are safe and sound. I'm fully healed back up if I took any damage. So this is the game. This is pure rogue. It's designed to um, reward you for playing it. You should feel a sense of reward just for spending time with the game. There's no clear objectives from the outset other than the command that doesn't go away to explore. And there's a number of, design philosophy in this game. In terms of how I'm running this game right now, you can see that I'm operating on a local host. So this is using a service called Vite, which I installed via Node.js. So this is JavaScript. I simply, it is a very bare bones implementation. I'm not using any existing game development platform or game development frameworks. Everything under the hood has been built sort of from scratch. And that's intentional because I guess maybe my inspiration here was a game like Animal Well, which was also built from scratch. That was done using the more, traditional C++, very common uh, uh, design or a code base for developing games. I chose JavaScript out of convenience so that I can easily upload to the web using Vite, but also because, as you can tell, the graphics direction here is intended to be very much like limiting itself. If I had sound, you could hear that the sound is limited to square wave only with a little cheating with the noise sounds. And the directions are simply, up, down, left, right, WASD. So it's very much meant to invoke a sense of like I'm going back in time and like how could this possibly be fun? This looks old. But that's kind of the point is that games actually don't need to have any sort of modern trappings to be fun. It's very much about your experience as a player and ultimately your mind. If you opened a book, for example, right, you could read a children's book, you could read an adult, you could read a nonfiction, adult fiction, and your experience with that is going to be dependent on sort of like your interest and the way in which the pages kind of jump out at you. And that's sort of what we're trying to do here is there's a lot of interesting ideas. They're more abstract, they're more simplified. That doesn't mean that it can't be fun. And it is fun. I would confidently argue. Um, I'll switch over to my other applications here. So I run this game, I program this game using Visual Studio Code as my baseline. And then I run my terminal applications occasionally. I'll use Claude Code for things where I want to learn or ask it to do things that I know what I want to do, but do it at scale. If I go into my libraries here, you can see the architecture of the game. So we have our core data. So if we have an enemy, you can see some of these are, if you're not familiar with Visual Studio Code, you can see I have a table of enemies. So if I looked for Rat, right here he is. He has 2 HP. He's fast and lightweight, and he has all of these additional things. I actually have a enemy, um, I have a testing environment where I can sort of tweak these and see in real time what they look like. Um, I have an animation for its attacks here. There's different affinities. These affinity tables affect drops from items when it dies. And then there's a special mechanic where if it detects that you have coins, it will attempt to steal them. So these things all relate to systems. So I have all these different objects. This is object oriented, but very straightforward. I have systems, and there's a lot of systems in here. In the case of thief system, I think that's embedded in, actually, I have to go and find it. That one's actually not embedded it's embedded in one of these systems. I don't remember which one off the top of my head. But this is the overall architecture. Um, yeah, I think it's under enemy update. But I have other tables. So in terms of items, let's see, I was using the sling. Let's find that. Right. So you can see there's a specific ASCII character, or in this case, it might be Unicode. I have to cheat because there's only so many ASCII characters. And you can see that not just damage, but every weapon has sort of how long it takes to run. In the case of guns as a class, there's different attributes related to bullets. There's a reload system. So if it runs out of bullets, there's a certain amount of time that it takes for it to reload. And that's pretty straightforward for guns. But I have a whole table of weapons here, and they all fall into different classifications. So you see weapons, gun. There's other types of items besides weapons. We have armor, which is not fully baked out, honestly, but its armor is pretty straightforward. Unless there's special attributes, it's something that mitigates damage or provides certain affinities, such as resistance to our slime enemies. Consumables are either triggered or they can be manually triggered. They do all sorts of things. This is one of the more complicated ideas in the game that I'm building tutorials out to sort of like naturally people discover how to use these. Ultimately, the gameplay loop encourages you to simply learn to use and equip weapons, and that's really the only thing it proactively asks of you. And there is crafting as well, so a lot of these items can be crafted using recipes. So in the case of a staff, staff is pretty straightforward. Oh, that's the last one. Here we go. Staff. Here we go. So a stick character plus a stick character equals a forward slash, which is a staff. And this is one of our melee class weapons. So I'm oversimplifying the architecture. In terms of the game itself, it falls in a simple but long main JS loop. So we're not using, again, any type of video game system like GameMaker. We just have a class called game, and we import all of these systems that I showed in that long, long list. And ultimately, what it does is it manages a loop. If I could find the loop here, here it is. Okay, so here's the game loop, right? There's an update every frame and a render every frame. And again, we're not using any framework for rendering. There's no tools helping it here. It's basically just drawing onto the web browser uh, um, using a very simple pixel-based web system or a render system. And then ultimately, everything that kind of happens in the game logically all runs here in the update thread. And then everything that gets seen runs through the render thread. That's the whole game. So everything else underneath it is just a long series of logical flows. So yeah, I won't go into the details here, but in effect, this is the game. If I wanted to run the game, I simply say I call node, and then I say run our dev environment, and we get a fresh local host. Now I have a 3001, and before we were on 3000. So now we have two versions of the game running at the same time. And I use GitHub pages. I manage the repos, of course, with GitHub. And the game that you can play right now, which is an older version of the game, is available via a GitHub page. And this is the actual live version of the game, which I now need to mute for myself because that's really loud. And yeah, let's see if there's any noticeable differences between this version and the one that I'm working on. Looks relatively similar. Yeah, no, this is definitely different. Yeah, there's minor improvements all over the place since I last made an update. But let's just craft a hammer really quick, and we'll just show a little bit more in case you were tired of looking at static screens. So we've got a bow hanging out here. So I have a bow and a hammer. I can switch between them. And there's a hapless slime over here that I'm just going to explode. And he drops an item for me. It looks like I got an eye. Yeah, this looks totally different in the dev server right now. Good, but yeah, this is Pure Rogue. I hope you enjoy playing what we've got going on right here, and I'll provide continuous updates.